Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for accommodating the time change. I had this audition that I really wanted to work on. My agent was very much like, you could really book this one, so spend some time with it. So I figured it'd be nice to get that out of the way so I could just really focus on this now and not be like, all right, I gotta make sure I get to that thing.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, thank you for accommodating me.
Yeah, thanks for willing to do this.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So I can, before I get to the Beidou topic, I can just kind of jump around then. In
Sure,
terms
yeah.
um, first, I wanted to ask, this is going way back before anything. Do you remember what the specific fan fiction you wrote for Inuyasha was about?
Did I say it was Inuyasha that I
Yeah.
wrote fan fiction for? When did I say that? Oh God, I don't remember. I must have been 13. I was 13 years old. That is like over half my life ago. I'm sorry, I cannot remember.
Okay.
I think it was, oh, you know what? No, I'm pretty sure it was like back in the day when like on fan fiction, they would still allow some of the like the song fics and the like the chat fics and things like that. So I'm pretty sure it was like an Inuyasha fan, a chat fic, and I wrote it when I was like 12 or 13 or something like that. It was not good. It was not good. Wow, that takes me back. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a deep cut question. Deep cut.
Well, I know, and it looks like you briefly had a on-camera experience with the Happy Man's Pants.
Oh, that was a hi Milo. Sorry, that's my cat. Yeah, it was a student film that I helped out with in college. So I did like a little bit of like it's like a few student films when I was in school. But I knew at first I thought my trajectory was going to be theatrical, and then I realized that it was going to be voiceover. So I just kind of stayed off camera for the most part, and kind of stuck to VO.
And would how you got into SAG beyond Dragon Age?
Yeah, it was Dragon Age and a few other jobs. I think officially it was a different one, um, but I don't remember which one. But yeah.
And do you remember what your first more like character part in anime was?
My first character part in anime, I think that I ever recorded was Zazan
Okay.
in Hunter x Hunter. It was Zazan, and I recorded Kurt the same day.
Mhm.
Followed very closely after by Adelante and Semiramis and Reika in Fate Apocrypha. I want to say it was like a month and a half later or something like that. So yeah.
And everybody I've talked to kind of has different answers as to how they took the dubbing. Was it easier for you or was it difficult?
I don't know. I was really nervous at first. Yeah, I think I fell into it pretty naturally, but like at first I was so nervous about all of it that it's hard for me to not think of it as being something of a challenge. Because it was the first dubbing gig I ever did. I was like terrified the entire time that I was going to screw it up. So I think that definitely colored my sense of what my early dubbing was like. But then I got used to it, and I was like, oh, this is fine. I can do this.
Mhm.
You're gonna chat the entire time? Oh, hi Milo. Yeah, he's I guess he wants to join the interview, huh? Every time I stream, everyone's always very excited when my cat shows up. They're more excited for my cat than for me, and I'm fine with that. I'm also more excited for my cat than I am for myself. Oh, boy, son.
What kind of breed?
I don't know. I don't know what the equivalent for mutt is for cats, but his mom was a rescue. Milo. His mom was a rescue off the streets, and she was already pregnant. I want to say she was a calico of some kind.
Okay.
But Milo definitely has he's got very like Siamese coloring. But he's also like he's got like a lynx point to him, so he's got some tabby in there. And he's big. He's a very big cat, and he's very floofy. So he's got to have one of those like big floofy cat breeds in there as well. But whatever he is, you can see the tail under there. He's 100% boy son. It's
Yeah.
little troublemaker. You're gonna disrupt this interview, aren't you? Everyone's gonna love that. They're gonna be like, wow, we went to talk to Allegra, but Allegra's cat truly is the reason. It's Allegra's cat is the moment. I agree.
I was about to ask next, considering those were your first parts, it is interesting. Do you think you have a preference for doing darker roles opposed to comedic?
I don't know, because I've kind of done a lot of like across the board. I do enjoy comedy. I really do. I think I enjoy having a balance of it. I really enjoy finding the dark in the lighthearted and the lighthearted in the dark. And I do I think if I were sticking purely to drama and never doing any comedy or vice versa, I think I would start to feel like really stifled, like creatively stifled in a certain area. So I'm grateful that, I do get to do all of it in my line of work, like Beidou is like a very lighthearted character, but she has her moments of seriousness. By contrast, Bloodhound is a very serious character, but has like a very dry sense of humor that very, very much sneaks out on occasion. And it's always delightful when Bloodhound cracks a joke, because it happens like once in a blue moon, but it's always good when it does.
Mm-hmm. If there is a single one that you can pick, what do you think is the most emotionally involved headspace you've had to go?
I have to think. On instinct right now, my gut is telling me it was actually Derieri in Seven Deadly Sins, mostly because I was going through some stuff at the time, and I managed to channel everything that I was going through into that performance. I generally don't necessarily recommend. It's really easy it's almost like Meisnerian, and you can lose yourself in the role a little bit too much, and you can hurt yourself that way. But for me, it was like, it was already there. It was at the surface, and I was like, I didn't have any control. It was like, all right, it's coming out. And it was a very good, it was a safe space. I knew the director and the engineer very well. And I would just sort of like, once we were done with that scene, I literally I burst into tears and was explained like, so this is what's going on in my life right now. And yeah, so I'd say that's one of the ones that stands out to me right now. I don't know if that would be the number one, but it certainly stands out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there'd be some stuff with the boss and the Sony files as well.
Yeah, no, it was a very serious, it was a very weird headspace to enter, but I didn't lose myself in it in any sense. I very much felt like I had control over the character, even if the character was disgusting to me. That's the thing. When I was playing that scene, to kind of keep it very vague, I rooted myself in the sense of the character being very gross.
Mm.
So it was interesting. I'd be really interested in seeing how other people approached the same subject matter, to vague around that for people who haven't played it yet, which everyone should, because Nirvana Initiative is coming out this year. Woo! And I can finally talk about the fact that I'm in it. Yay. Yay.
What about with the different I know there's like a number of emotional scenes with Dorothea as well.
Oh yeah, no, that was actually, yeah, no, there was actually a specific moment where Dorothea got very bitter. I think it was in conversation with Hanneman. It was Hanneman's support B, where she talks about, I think that's the one where she says, I'm not sure if like her father had been there. If like her father had basically come to see one of her shows and then hit on her, not knowing that was his daughter. I want to say I did that one, and Patrick was like, I can tell this is really impacting you right now. Dorothea needs to be a little bit more composed about it. And I was like, okay. So I had to take a slightly different approach to it, because there was so much bitterness that was bleeding out of me for no reason. It's, I guess, just the general injustice of, the patriarchy was kind of impacting me. But there wasn't really a very personal tie with it. It just kind of was pouring out of me, and they were like, dial it back just a touch, but you're there just a little less. I was like, cool. Yeah, there were a few moments with her that were quite intense, and but also very quietly intense. Like we killed Ferdy Professor. He used to be our friend. Do you remember those days? It's one of my favorite lines.
Do you think you find it easier to connect to her or Shamir?
I'd say Dorothea, because she's closer to my personality, but Shamir's pretty easy to connect to as well. It's a different headspace. It's just Dorothea comes to me a little bit more naturally because she's closer to who I am as a person, and she's more emotive, and more emotive characters. As you can tell, I'm a very emotive person. So getting to play emotive characters is a little bit more, I don't have to restrain myself. Like, because Shamir, I make myself very still. and my vocal range becomes very limited, and my pacing becomes a lot more clipped, which I can obviously do, but contrast that with Dorothea, who's got a very musical up and down everywhere, all over the place, blah, 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 manner of speaking and general disposition. It's a lot closer to who I am as a person. So it's a little bit easier to fall into that. I never think, am I out of voice with Dorothea?
What about with Carla and Ethlyn?
Oh, I would say Carla. No, they're different. They're both different. I'd say Ethlyn probably comes a little bit more naturally to me. Yes. God, I'm sorry. He's going to be interrupting this entire thing. I'm so sorry. I think Ethlyn probably comes a little bit more naturally to me, but no one out of the Fire Emblem girls, no one is as close to who I am as a person as Dorothea is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who do
you think with characters that you relate the most to?
Beidou. I mean, Beidou is like very much just kind of me in a nutshell as well. That's always the running joke. They'll play my reference for me, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, so that's just me." Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go. Who else? The characters that I like overall or that I regularly reprise. Boss to an extent as well. I'm very lucky. Sometimes I'm asked about roles and I'm like, who have I played? Like, what have I done? Well, it's kind of like it's a reminder sometimes when I'm asked that question. It's like, I've worked on a lot of really good stuff and a lot of really interesting stuff. It's kind of nice to get to realize sometimes that I'm like, wait, did I work on this? What was this? It's kind of it's a nice reminder that my body of work is substantial enough that I have to think sometimes like, wait, what? Josephine is like me as well, I would say, from Dragon Age. I don't know how I could have forgotten her. She's a dorky little family girl. So, that's me.
It seems like I'm the only person who knows the show, but it was cool. You had a really fun little role in Pretty Boy Detective Club.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It was like a one session thing, but it was really fun to come in as her. Tony Oliver was directing, and he and I, we go back a lot of different projects. But yeah, she was a lot of fun. I probably announced it at some point, but no one's ever talked to me about it, but yeah, she was really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like a fun, like smarter than thou art teacher, which I dug.
And I know it's kind of more unique in anime to perform with yourself like you have with Jujutsu Kaisen. What was
and Fate Apocrypha?
Yeah. What was the story about that?
Well, I don't know why the decision was made to cast me in those roles to perform against myself, but there we go. It was me. And basically the way that we approached it for both shows is you go character by character. Mm-hmm. So we say we get to episode, I want to say we recorded episodes 16 and 17 on the same day for JJK, or rather in the same batch of sessions. So first I went in and they were like, we're going to have you do all of Miwa's lines across these 2 or 3 episodes or whatever. So I did all of that. And then I came back. Maybe it would have been the same day if we'd gotten through everything fast enough, but we didn't. So I came back another day and did all of Maki. And the way that I approach that is when I know I'm going to be speaking to myself, I'm always in the back of my mind, I try to anticipate what my own choices are going to be, because I have to make sure that I'm striking a balance in the characters. When Miwa is in a scene by herself, she has a lot more wiggle room in terms of voice and speech and everything, because she just gets to be herself in that scene. There's no other Allegra character in that scene. But when they're both in the same scene, I have to make sure that I'm kind of keeping them up at their extremes so that we're never quite getting too deep and serious with Miwa, and the playfulness with Maki has to stay in a very specific spot. Mm-hmm. So that they don't bleed together too much. It was the same for Fate Apocrypha, which was the first time I had to do it, which was very stressful. Thank you, Tony Oliver, for coaching me through that. And he was the one who really said, Semiramis has wiggle room in her voice. Sometimes she's up here and sometimes she's down here. But when she's on screen with Adelante and they speak to each other, Adelante's voice is here. So Semiramis has to stay up here. She has to stay in this area because if she starts to get too deep, that's where she starts to sound too much like Adelante. So it's like, we got to push them to their extremes so that they don't start to sound the same. And then the second they're not in the same room together anymore, it doesn't matter. They can they can get all the peaks and valleys of who they are back. But as long as they're speaking to each other, you have to be a little bit mindful to keep them distinct.
Mm-hmm. And kind of related to that, what do you think is the most difficult voice that you had to sustain?
I would say when Derieri went into Endura form, that was really tough. Sometimes little boys can get a little gravelly. Oh God, what was the name? It was in Beyblade, and he was one of the boys. I was playing like baby Greg Chun's character. And I have to Hyde. Yeah, there we go. That one was tough. That one was really tough to maintain because it was like kind of going down into a boy voice in the first place. It ends up having a little bit more of a rasper, like just like the general conceit, even though little boys sound like in this area too, they don't particularly have a a more of a rasp to it. But the general conceit when we're doing boy voices is that they have to kind of sound like this. So I already knew I was going to have to do that. And then they were like, and this is what he's like as an adult. And I listened to Greg and I was like, okay, what? Oh God, this is going to hurt. And it did. That one was a little tough. At the end of the day, I was like, cool, I'm going to drink me my Pepsi-Cola. But then also I've worked on a few projects where it's been like I've been hired to go in and do a lot of like combat stuff. So those are always a little bit tougher when I know it's just like, all right, you're going to be screaming grenade today, like great. But they generally, when I do those projects, they're generally booking me for like 2 hours at a time. So that's good.
And going back to boy voices, was it easier to do young Tanjiro opposed to Hyde?
Yeah. Because Tanjiro was gentler, certainly as a kid. As an adult too, but I mean, it's not harder to be gentler than Hyde is. Let's be real. But baby Tanjiro was like so young and innocent that it was very much a different approach. I didn't have to like to the extent that I did with Hyde, because Hyde was like
yeah. Well, and everybody else that I've talked to who's been part of Agretsuko so that they had the opportunity to audition for nearly every female character. Was that? Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Certainly all of us in the original season, I read for every woman. I'm pretty sure. And I love Puko, so I'm happy with what I ended up with. She's a little shit and I love her.
Yeah.
Terrible friend. She's an absolutely terrible friend, but a good friend at the same time. It's really weird. She will take advantage of you, but she's she's got good advice and she's got a good she's got a good head on her shoulders in very specific moments. And she can be a very supportive friend, but she will also ask you to move her couch.
Right.
And she will not pay you in pizza.
Personally, for me, I think my favorite role of yours is Kakyuu.
Really? Oh, talk about a gentle character. Even when she dies, it was like, it has to be very delicate. Like the scream that she did, they were like, tone it back, make it gentler. Up until the very end, she's very, gentle and soft and everything. She has strength to her, but it's all very like, it's a light touch, everything that she does. So even in those moments, it was like, all right, like I know, Allegra, you want to do a juicy death scream here, but you can't. It's not that juicy. It can't be juicy.
I could definitely imagine that it was like a dream to be involved with Sailor Moon in some way.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I grew up watching it, so it was one of those shows that I grew up watching. So when the auditions came through, I was like, oh my God. And you're telling me you would be the original English voice of any of these roles. Like that was the crazy part. No one else has ever, I mean, on an official level, no one has ever touched these roles in English before. And like, you know, those of us who debuted the characters in English, it's like they're ours. Like just mind blowing as someone who watched the show when I was like 10.
Right.
So yeah.
And this was I haven't really seen you talk about much about playing Slan in the new Berserk series either.
It's because it's very not safe for work. That's why. Oh, that was fun content. That was fun content. You good? He's like, Mom, don't talk about voicing the sexy ladies. I'm 2. I don't want to hear this. I'm a baby. No, that was an interesting session. I got an email ahead of time being like, the role's, you know, a little risque. You can be comfortable doing that. And I want to say the episodes were on Crunchyroll in Japanese prior to being released in English. So they sent me a link to it, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I can do this. It was just a very interesting process working on it. I think my favorite part was the amount of times that it was just like, so this is pretty much just orgasmic, isn't it? There's like a when she gets stabbed with the sword the first time. Oh no, the only time, yeah, was when she gets stabbed towards right before she disappears into troll guts. Like I listened to it in Japanese, and I kind of just like looked over at the director and engineer, and I was like, I'm going to do what needs to be done. And they were like, okay. And I just like added little extra noises into that to make it even more just like dead as an orgasm. I was like, she's a sexy lady. What can I say? Mm-hmm. It's that whore princess of the uterine sea.
Right. Yeah.
Dear God, that was a name someone came up with. I'm going to make an association there as to what kind of blood that is.
Yeah.
So very sexy content. Oh, Berserk. Nothing about Berserk is actually sexy. It's all horrifying.
Were you a fan of the series before getting into it?
I had never read or watched it in any capacity. So it was like, I sort of like took a glance. I knew it existed, but I took a glance into it and I was like, oh my God, what the, ooh, there is so much to this. Okay, cool. Let's go. What did she do in the movie that I'm also not dubbing? Thank God I'm not dubbing that. I don't want to dub that. So yeah, I'd been vaguely aware of it, but I did my research when I got the part, and I was like, all right, let's go. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. So yeah. And
I know that since Michael Cernaklis directed the original Berserk series, and you worked with him again in Fully Cooley.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much fun. That was a good one. I was directed, I think, a few times by him and a few times by Stephanie on that show. But they're fantastic people. I adore them. So that was another like role that I got that was something of a shock, because I had been such a fan of it when I was a kid. Right. And you know, it's the old Toonami block, man. And when I made my debut on Toonami, it was like, there we go. I've achieved another like little check box, like a little check mark on my like bucket list of things as a voice actor. Cause you know, I was like, I got to be in one of my favorite video game franchises, which was Dragon Age. And then, you know, I was on Toonami, which, you know,
yeah,
I didn't watch that at all. So I've got a couple other ones that I'm looking to check off, and a few that I have checked off that I can't talk about yet, but a few more that I'm definitely looking to. So yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yeah. Well, when you were like just when you were a fan or when you started out in voiceover, were there voice actors specifically who worked in anime that you were inspired by?
I don't necessarily like if you were to ask me who inspired me as an actor, honestly, there's a very specific actress who inspired me and inspired a lot of my comedic sensibilities, and that's Madeline Kahn.
Okay.
She was like an old film and Broadway actress, and you know, a comedian who worked with Mel Brooks a lot. and everything. And she's like absolutely one of my favorite people ever. And like, that's who I'm inspired by in a lot of ways. I mean, I would say that like there are a lot of people across the board in anime and in voiceover in general that I like, I've always admired and looked up to. Like one that, I mean, obviously like the old ones like June Foray and Russi Taylor and everything. Like, you know, you look at them and you're just like, oh my God. But yeah, so many people that I think it was the sort of thing where I didn't necessarily like look up people as much when I was younger. And then I would be in a booth with someone and then I'd be like for instance, like bring it back to Tony here. I remember working with Tony for the first time, like, oh my God, he was Lupin, what? Like, he's Lupin? Are you kidding me? I'm working with Lupin right now. So I had those little moments those are always a lot of fun for me to realize. I geek out. I try to be very quiet about how I'm geeking out, but I do definitely geek out sometimes. Where I'm like, I watched you on television when I was very young. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Just generally too, who do you think, or what do you think is the case where you've been the most starstruck in terms of who you've met or worked with? Or
it's pretty cool to meet Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh, yeah. That
one was pretty cool. We met during Dragon Age. That one was pretty cool for me. I wouldn't, that's the one that comes to mind. We'd already we worked together on Dragon Age in the first place. We did the base game and we chatted on Twitter and everything during all of that. And then when it came time to record the DLC, his session was right after mine. And so I met him in person for the first time. And the first thing he does is he opens his arms wide to greet me. And I was like, Freddie Prinze Jr. wants to hug me. What is happening? What have I achieved in my life to have gotten to this point? Like, I was not even 30 at that point and getting a hug from someone I'd watched in movies when I was 12. Like, what was my life? I sometimes sit back and I go, what is my life right now? Mm-hmm. Just this morning, I checked Twitter and 2 of my characters were trending. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, hello? What? I don't get it. I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm just happy to be here. I'm here with my banana and my duck and my coffee. I'm vibing. I'm gonna play Pokemon after this. It's gonna be great.
And do you have a particular favorite director you've worked with, or is that hard to select?
I couldn't narrow it down. So many of the different directors that I've worked with, like, they've all taught me and inspired me in different ways, you know? Mm-hmm. So I absolutely, it would be a disservice to literally every director that I've worked with, basically, for me to just say, this one right here. Because I can't pick. They're all different and they've all, like, you know, guided me in different ways. So
it seems like you had the most fun with Christian.
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, I gotta drag him. He's my favorite. No, it's funny. I met him socially first, and then we worked together on Sirius the Jaeger. Mm-hmm. And another one of both of our really close friends was engineering. And the 3 of us were just cracking jokes the entire session. And I was like, this is good. This is a dangerous combination. And there've been a couple other projects where it's been that particular trio. Parts of 13 Sentinels were recorded. I mean, Christian directed the entire project, but this particular engineer, Eddie, was engineering for a little bit of that. And it's like, whenever that happens, it's deadly. And of course, Eddie and I have to like gang up on Christian because it's just, he's so bullyable. What a silly man. He's one of my really good friends in real life. And which is part of why I bully him so much, because I am an excellent friend. He's also my DM in D&D. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, like I gotta torture the DM. The most torturous though is Ben Lepley. Okay. He is a menace to Christian because he's the one who comes up with the most ludicrous schemes for his character. And Christian just sits there and you can just see the light dying in his eyes. Whenever Ben says, okay, now bear with me for a second, you just see Christian going like, yes, you want to do what? Okay, roll dexterity. Like, just, it's delightful to watch every time.
Well, I know you made a Twitter post about something about like there was a show that he was directing, that Christian was directing, and you made everyone leave to go listen to Baby Shark.
Oh, that was 13 Sentinels. Yeah.
Okay.
It was, I don't know why it even came up. This would have been February or March of 2020. So, right before the world went to shit.
Mhm.
And or rather, the world was already going to shit. The United States was living in a state of denial.
Mhm.
Yeah, we for whatever reason, I like made a Baby Shark joke, and Christian was like, I don't think I've heard it. And I was like, how have you not heard Baby Shark? So I came out of the booth when we were on break, and I was like, we're gonna listen to Baby Shark now. And I just started playing Baby Shark. And Christian was like, why is this still going? Why is this song still going? Why does it exist? He was so offended, and that delights me. That's another one of our favorite things as a D&D party is we'll just be like, oh, Christian, you haven't heard this song before. You're going to listen to it now. Like he hadn't heard the song Walk the Dinosaur. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
Yeah, he hadn't heard it. So I was like, we're going to make you listen to it now. Doing the little dance.
Yeah.
Like, while he's sitting there going, this is an objectively bad song. And then we all yell at him saying that it's an objectively good song,
Mm-hmm.
We're all good friends. Yeah. That was also I balanced it out because I played some Lizzo after Baby Shark. And it was like right after Lizzo's album had come out. Tempo.
Okay.
Tempo is a great song. Milo, can you not were you licking your nuts? That's not a no. Milo. He's a very chatty boy too. That's another thing about him. Right? What a baby. I had the audacity to be in the booth right before this. So he's like, you haven't been paying enough attention to me, Mom. Like, yeah, because I have work. How do you manage? How do you live when I have to like go to a studio? He's spoiled because I got him at the very start of the quarantine.
Oh, okay.
You better not give me chomps. So for the longest time, it'd be like, well, Mommy's only at home. So when I started going back into studio, it was like you'd have a nervous breakdown because I wasn't home for extended periods of time. And then God, when I first traveled again for my cousin's wedding in July, yes. Oh, he went on like a slight hunger strike because he was like, he hadn't ever not had me for a few days at a time prior to that. So
have you ever had any exotic animals?
No, only ever cats and dogs.
Okay.
And we had birds growing up too, but nothing totally outside the standard realm of pets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a pet?
Not anymore, but I'm really into like I'm one of those people that wants to have a raccoon, but I know that's not,
I was gonna say that's a little illegal probably, but raccoons are pretty cute. Oh my God, look at this like emo boy in the background right now. Yeah, I'm calling you out. He's such a little character. He's gonna steal the show this entire interview.
That's great.
The comments are all gonna be like, yeah, but Allegra's cat though. I'm used to it. Anytime someone comes over, they're just like, that's nice. That's nice. Great to see you. Where's Milo? Mm-hmm. Where is he? Where is the boy? And I'm like, he's in the bedroom. He'll come out in a second. Don't be lewd. Anyway, I'm sure you have more questions that aren't just me rambling about my cat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to bring up Noel and Burn the Witch.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. That was a cool project. Oh, my God. Apparently, I'm blanking on the creator's name right now. And selected us.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Personal approval over the English voices. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, great. Good to know. Wow. Okay. So that was a cool one. I saw a lot of people were very upset that we didn't do British accents for it. It never came up in development that they wanted us to. So yeah, I don't know where the creative decision was that they didn't want us to do it, but I think it's valid either way. I think we all did a great job, and it was really well directed, and I think it turned out really good. Mm-hmm. So
I said, do you find it easy to relate to her too then?
Not really. She's so stoic, and I'm very not stoic. But she's got some snark to her, some very quiet little snark, which those characters are always fun. where you think that they're nothing but serious, but then they just like little like snark bombs left and right. It's always the quiet ones. Unlike Milo, who's not quiet. Not a quiet boy. But yeah, Noel is great. That was a really cool project. Oh my God. I was geeking out getting to work on that one. So yeah.
It's another kind of a role that's out of the normal for you, Rhaenys and Elmaloy.
Yes, I just got her figure. It's in my living room right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I loved her. I definitely didn't expect it because I'd already played 3 characters in the Fate universe. And I was like, I'll audition for it, but I'm not going to book in. I'm especially like, I figured I'd book Adashino, even though Adashino like had a voice that was like quite similar to what I was already doing, what I'd already done with Adelante and Semirami specifically. I said that my read on her kind of floated between the two. And I just sort of like, I read for Rhaenys too, even though I never booked characters like that. And then they were like, you're Rhaenys. And I was like, oh, I booked the show. I mean, I booked who? What? And I just kind of sat staring at my phone for a minute, like, what? Real? Her? Okay. Christian directed that one as well. Oh, and I'm really sad. I don't think a blooper reel will ever see the light of day, but we did have some really good bloopers in there. One that was specifically meant to troll the hell out of Kaylee. It was the scene, I want to say it was in like episode 3 or episode 4. It's kind of early on. And Rhaenys it starts with just Rhaenys walking around a room and running her hands along like some of the furniture in the room. It's when we're in Ben Lepley's mansion. It's right before we bump into Kyrie again. I don't remember if she had any dialogue over that or if it was just like a quiet opening to the scene. But to troll the hell out of Kaylee, I had Christian record me going, they see me rolling, they hating, patrolling and try to catch me right and dirty. Trying to catch me right and dirty. Trying to catch me right and dirty. And it's when we do that, it's called leaving bombs for people. Where I'm just going to change this line and see what leave this as like a little an extra track. Like this is for when this person records on Kuroko's basketball. I did one where I knew Zena was going to be recording after me. And so it matched. The worst thing is when it matches the flap perfectly. That's always when it's like, oh, it matches the mouth movements too. That's good. I don't remember the beginning of the line, but the second half of the line, I changed it to, because I'm gay, homosexual, gay. And he apparently lost his shit when he heard it, which is good. That's what you want. You want to make your friends laugh. And whenever I get bombed too, it's always like Chris Hackney has bombed me before. It's just like when the other person, you're just like, do we have a second? Can I leave this? Can I just put this in for them? Thanks. Like the best. It's always the best.
So then
bye.
What is your personal story of how you got involved with Genshin?
With Genshin. Okay. So it started with Chris Fiala, who directs Genshin, also directed The Somnium Files. And when he was, they were looking at like, who do we want to bring in to read for these characters? He saw the specs for Beidou, and I think it even said she's kind of like a boss to it. And he was like, well, do I know someone who can play a boss? So my agents just got an email saying, we want to bring Allegra in for a directed audition for this character of Beidou. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I knew really nothing about it. They kind of gave me like a little, like, I wouldn't even say a breakdown of the game because like, I didn't know what the plot of the game was going to be in any sense. They were just like, this is kind of what the game is like. And here's this character, Beidou, read for her. And I was like, okay. And, we did the lines, we played around with it, and I left, went home probably that day. And then like a week, 2 weeks, I don't know when later, I just got an email saying, hey, we want to book you for this character, and we'll this is when we want you to come in, and we'll start recording this day. And I was like, great. It was very straightforward. A lot of times I'm very lucky to be on two games that sort of hit the world by storm, which are Apex and Genshin. And since they're both live games, they're constantly adding characters to the game. And there's a huge difference between people who audition for the project after it's released, knowing what it is, and people who audition before it turns into a thing. With both Genshin and Apex, it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's just this video game. Because before a game comes out, unless it's very notably like, oh, it's the sequel to yada yada, you don't really know. Like, you know, when I went in and I auditioned for Fire Emblem, I knew I was working on a Fire Emblem game. And so I was like, oh, it's a Fire Emblem, but Genshin Impact, what's that? Which is such a funny question in hindsight, but 2.5 years ago or whenever that was really the question, you know, it's like, what is this game? I started recording it late 2019, and now the thought of not knowing what Genshin is kind of ludicrous because it so took the world by storm. But back then it was just another gig to me, and I thought Beidou was a cool character, but you know, the best thing that you can do as an actor when you're working on things is to kind of go in the booth, do your job, and then leave and just kind of put it behind you and not think too much about it. Because you don't want to get your hopes up for anything, because you never know what's going to be a hit and what's going to flop. And, you know, maybe you work on this game and everyone hates it, or maybe you work on this game and no one really plays it. They don't hate it, but no one really plays it. And then maybe it turns into Apex Legends or Genshin Impact, where it's like, how many people just downloaded this in the hour since it launched? Jesus Christ. You try not to get your hopes up when it's an untested thing. So, especially because like, I didn't even see it. Took me realizing that streamers were really excited for it, for me to even realize that like Genshin was even a thing that was happening, because I wasn't seeing any like marketing for it or anything along those lines, and I was like, oh, people know this is a thing. Oh, that's exciting. And then it dropped, and I was like, oh my god, everyone's talking about this game, and all my friends started playing it, and it was just like, it was huge, and none of us knew what to do. None of us knew what to do at first. We were just like, okay, this is a very big game. We're just going to take a step back and we're just going to let this happen.
And considering what you said already, was it totally easy to get into her headspace, or was there any difficulty at first?
It was really easy. It was really easy. Because it's just, you know, she's chill. She's generally positive, kind of a badass. She's kind of got this like Robin Hood aspect to her, to put it in a very Western way. And you really see that in her hangout, where she's one of the routes where she's like, you know, the fish, what I call the fish route, which is arguably my favorite one. It's like not my favorite one because I can't pick, but as far as the one that made me laugh the hardest, that was the one that made me laugh the hardest. You know, where she's just like, I'm not going to tell you what this deal was, but it was for it's getting supplies to people who need them. And it very much reminded me of this like stealing from the rich to give to the poor thing. That wasn't like, you know, I don't have the details myself of what the deal Beidou was doing was, but it was very much like, I'm going to bend the law in order to make sure that people have, you know, the food and supplies that they need to survive. And that felt very Robin Hood to me. Yeah. And especially seeing every time she bumps into treasure hoarders, and they're just like, oh my God, Captain Beidou, hi. I don't mean to disrespect you. So sorry about that. Like, everyone's terrified of her. It's delightful and it's hilarious. And characters like that are, just loop back around to the actual point, characters like that are always really fun to play. And you kind of just, I like leaning back into them and being like, oh, so I'm a badass. Okay, yeah. So you scared of me? I'm doing the right thing in my life. They're a lot of fun. And it's very easy to slip into her character, especially because, like I said, her voice is basically just, you can probably tell her voice is pretty much my speaking voice. And I don't necessarily think of characters in terms of their voices. Like, sometimes you have to, in a sense, because you're playing a character who has a particular accent or who's particularly younger or older. Like, I have to think of Rhinus at least a little bit in terms of how she sounds. But at the same time, it is rooted in the character. And for Beidou, it really is just like, all right, it's just me speaking. That's just who I am. It's just who I am. So.
And on the topic of character relationships, what's your opinion of her connection with Ningguang?
I knew that was going to come up, especially given recent events. It's impossible. Everyone always asks me. So I think that she and Ningguang are so fascinating because for all intents and purposes, they should be oil and water, and they are. They have kind of very similar, I don't want to say similar personal tragedies, because it's really more like very parallel hardships that they faced in their early days with regards to having very little. And they both took, yes, Milo, stop it. What are you doing? They both took very separate paths and separate ways to gain, I don't want to say gain power because that's not quite it. They both took very separate routes and became girl bosses in very different ways, but sort of inspired by the same place of coming from nothing, reaching a point of having so much, and how they want to change and shape the world. And their standpoints are quite opposite. And I think as a result, they are oil and water. They do disagree, they do bicker, they do feud, but they respect each other so deeply. Like you see it where Ningguang will say that, you know, Beidou will always come around, explain to her why, and she'll always come around. She's one of the most, I think she even says, I don't know if it's in one of her voice lines or if it's in like one of the character stories, that she sees Beidou as one of the most reliable people in Miwa. And Beidou, for all her grousing about how like, oh, Ningguang's making me do this, will always come around and help Ningguang. They're obviously very close, even if they kind of professionally have to act like they don't care about each other at all. Because I mean, you know, like I said, it's not as if Robin Hood and Prince John were friends behind the scenes, because Ningguang isn't Prince John, but kind of along those lines where it's just like everyone's favorite plucky outlaw is friends with one of the rulers of the town. Like people would, I mean, you see it in Beidou's lines about Ganyu, where she's just like, I don't want anyone to know that Ganyu and I are friends because I don't want to get Ganyu into trouble. Same sort of thing applies with Ningguang, but she is going to put up more of a like, oh, this woman, don't talk to me about her. She obviously hates me, right? Am I right? Like they definitely play at or they lean into the bickering and the rivalry and the everything, but they do care about each other really deeply. Now, how you want to interpret how they care about each other, I guess that's up to you. But they are obviously very close, and they're a lot closer than they will publicly and outwardly admit to each other. And it's a really interesting relationship, especially because, you know, how do two people who faced similar misfortunes in their youth approach the world as a result? And, you know, two different approaches, two different endpoints, but same level of prestige and reputation and power, even if it's in different fields. How do you get two people who are so similar and so different at the same time to, you know, how does that relationship build? Where is the friction? Where is the friendship? You know? So I think it's a really interesting relationship between the two of them. It's really interesting.
And in relation to Beidou's past, did you have a personal opinion of what do you think happened to her other eye? Or did you have one?
I don't know. I mean, there are two ways to look at it. It's either, you know, the pirate eye patch where she does have the eye underneath it, but it's for it's so that when they go below deck and come back above deck, there's less of an adjustment period as to light versus dark. Or the sexy version of it is she lost it to Haishan. That's I like the sexy version, which is that she lost it to Haishan. I would like to imagine she's got one of those badass scars underneath the patch, but I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I think it'd be pretty hot sexy. I'm sorry about the mic. For her to have that like cool scar right over the eye. Lost it in a fight with a dragon.
Yeah.
That she personally slayed without a vision. I mean, why isn't she a 5-star? She should be a 5-star. So,
what is your, if you haven't already mentioned it, what is your favorite aspect of her lore then?
everything she says in the village route when she's a little tipsy and talking about her personal philosophy, that was just so interesting to me. Like the way that she just kind of explained, you know, the way that she does favors and the way that she chooses to be connected to people. I mean, when you think about it, the Crux fleet is her found family, because she didn't have a family and she was alone and she was abandoned and cast away and exiled and however you want to phrase it. So for her to build a family of her own just by virtue of kindness, doing favors with the intent of like, yeah, you know, you owe me, I owe you. But it always the favors comes across to me a little bit less like I'm going to hold you to this right now. And a little bit more like, you know, when you go to like coffee with someone and they're like, I'll cover it. And you go, okay, but I'm going to get the next one. That's what it feels like. Her system of favors feels like to me. It's not concrete. It's not like you owe me this amount. It's just like, you know, you help me, I help you. It's, you know, that it's really beautiful. The way that she just values connections with people and yeah, the way that she views the world. Like it was, to paraphrase, like when society collapses, you know, there won't be money. We'll just be connections, the way that we're connected to each other. That's going to be what's left if society ever collapses. And that's really beautiful to me, that the bonds between people are what power the world. I think there's something really beautiful about that. And I really appreciated learning that about Beidou. And getting to explore that. I already liked Beidou, but I have to say, when I recorded her hangout, that was when I absolutely fell in love with her, because that was like getting to see all those little layers to who she is, and especially just learning about her philosophy and everything. I was just like, all right, she's one of my favorite characters right now, like genuinely one of my favorite characters that I record.
Is there anything that you hope to see from her still, like in terms of her storyline?
I just want more content. I just want more Beidou. I just want her to be everywhere. I want her to take the traveler around in her boat everywhere. I just like, I can't think of anything in particular that I want so much as I just want more Beidou. Like, I just want her to always be around. I mean, she very much feels like a person to me. And so there's always going to be more underneath the surface in terms of who she is and what she likes and how she interacts with people. I just want to see her talk to people and interact with the world and everything. She's great.
Yeah, a lot of people in the sub said that they switched the voice to English specifically for you.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. That makes me really happy to hear. I mean, I have to say, I haven't really heard Korean Beidou, but I've heard Japanese, and obviously I've heard Chinese Beidou. All of the Beidous are really good. I was actually talking about this because the English Beidou is a little bit different from Chinese and Japanese Beidou in terms of like everything. But what the client was saying at MiHoYo was it always makes sense. Like they're all Beidou. It's just like English Beidou is still the same Beidou as Chinese Beidou, even if there are slight differences in approach. It all feels consistent and it's all in character for her. So, and that I think is really, that's why I think localization is super interesting. There is no right answer in my mind. It's just different ways of interpreting the same concept, translating it literally across different languages and different cultures. So,
yeah, I know the translation for some of the Chinese and Japanese, she's more explicit kind of in some ways.
Yeah, and I know, for instance, you know, I know in Chinese and Japanese, like, you know, Kazuha will call her big sis.
Yeah.
Which doesn't translate really into English. It would feel weird.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the intent of it because I'm very aware of Eastern media, but just to put it in a purely Western context, it feels like big sis doesn't have the same connotation. It just feels, it's a little bit more like, wait, are they actually related? What's going on? Which is it's a little nuance that gets lost, and it's a bummer because it adds like a cool little touch to the relationship. But I still think the relationship between Kazuha and Beidou is so cool. I love them. I love Kazuha. He's great. My little wind boy.
Do you main Beidou then when you play the game?
I don't play Genshin.
You
I'm
don't?
bad. I don't play it. No, I'm one of the actors who doesn't play it. Like I said, all my friends got into it, and I was like, I never did. And now just looking at the amount of content I'd have to get into, I'm just like, no, we're good. I can wait. I can wait. But if I did, I would absolutely main Beidou. I would get really good with that counter. And generally I'm very bad at counter mechanics, but I would get good just to play Beidou. Because I'm gonna main me. Just like the 3 times I played Apex Legends, I've played Bloodhound, you know. When I play Fire Emblem, I always recruit Dorothea and Shamir, and they're always in my party, you know. I gotta.
Do you
It's more
think
fun that way.
Yeah. Do you think you have a single favorite line or several for Beidou?
I mean, it always comes back to, if you ever want to trade tactics, I'm always ready. One that I really grew fond of, and a lot of people asked for it when I was doing signings at Anime Impulse, was cold beer after a hard day's work. Nothing like it. That one's always good. Like some of the quieter, like if you can change something, change it. If not, I'm blanking on the rest of the line. But when the lines like that, where she's just kind of sharing her philosophy and giving again big sisterly advice to the traveler. Like, I think those lines are really cool. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, she's just got a bunch of really cool voice lines. And then of course my personal favorite is the one where she's drinking because of the amount of takes we did for that line.
Oh.
We did so many takes because they were very particular. We did it 2 picture, and they were very particular about how wet of a they wanted for it. And I was just like, okay. And they're like, no. And I'm like, we did that so many times. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Friday or something like that. And I'm just in my booth, like literally, my booth is a closet, which is hilarious because I'm bisexual. So I always make the, oh no, I'm in the closet again jokes. I was just in my closet at 9 o'clock in the morning going like, like 10 times. I'm just like, did we get it? Are we good? So that line always sticks out to me because it plays randomly. It's one of the idols, but I just have a good chuckle over that one because of the experience of recording it. Sometimes it's the experience of recording a line that makes it like kind of stand out to you because you're like, I remember that day. I remember how many times I stood there.
It's kind of a running joke for all the other Genshin interviews I've done for me to ask for Zhongli's line and the character voice.
Oh, in his voice or in my voice?
In Beidou's voice.
Let me pull up the line, the Osmanthus wine one.
Yeah.
Osmanthus wine tastes the same as I remember, but where are those who share the memory?
There we go.
There we go. That's the running joke. You have everyone do it. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. You should do a compilation at some point of every time an actor did it. It's like a Twitter thread or something like that, clipping every single one. People would die. They would really love that.
Yeah, I guess, is there anything that you want to say to Beidou mains?
Hi, thank you for maining Beidou. You are maining Best Girl, which I really appreciate and I really respect. I'm glad you guys are so attached to this character, whether it's because of the play style or because of just who she is as a person. I'm obviously very, very fond of her, and I really enjoy playing the character, and I hope that comes across in the performance. And yeah, thank you for standing by her. Even though she wasn't in the story for so long, thank you for waiting patiently for her to become relevant. And I hope whatever happens in the future of Genshin, that you continue to be happy, whether or not Beidou is present. Obviously, she'll always come back in some capacity, but I hope you continue to love the game and have fun. And I don't know if I should tell you to wail or not to wail right now. I don't know what's in my best interest as an actor. Wail, please wail responsibly. Here we go. Yeah.
So going back to just some final recent things, I'm sure it had to be a lot of fun being SMT5.
Oh yeah, I mean that was obviously somewhat of a reprisal because one of the characters I voiced was a reprisal from when I played Pixie in SMT3. And that was really fun too, because I was, I'm not just Pixie, I'm the Pixie. So I really loved watching the scene between Nahobino and the Demi-Fiend, because it's like Casey and Christian just silently staring at each other while I'm floating around the middle going like, "Ooh, you're gonna get it. You're gonna fight and he's gonna kick your butt. Are you sure you want to do this? You're gonna get it." It was like, it's just very funny to watch, especially because like I sort of knew it's really weird sometimes when you work and when you kind of just do incidentals in a game, you're not really sure what any of these characters are or what's going to happen. Right. So like it didn't fully connect for me that it was like, oh, the Demi-Fiend is coming back as a boss in SMT5 and that's what I was talking about. But like when I realized that was the case, I just had the biggest chuckle over it because I'm like, I'm Christian's hype Pixie, and that's hilarious to me. Also, when I was Pixie, I was joking. This is gonna be my gay jokes over here because Casey and Damon are also in the LGBTQ plus community. So the scene where I'm blanking on the name of the character that Damon actually voices, the demon that attaches.
Oh,
yeah. Is it Aogami?
That's right. Yeah.
Aogami, yeah. When Aogami is telling Nahobino, like, go speak to that Pixie, that'll be your first ally. It was just like, it's like an elder gay telling a baby gay, like, look at that gay over there, be gay friends. It just was very funny to me. I was just like, elder gay, baby gay, go be gay friends. It's great. So we had like a little LGBTQ plus bonding session. Of that, and we do love to do those. Every time I see Casey somewhere, we just kind of go gay at each other because we're that obnoxious. We are obnoxious people. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was my first time working with Caitlin Gault as a director, and she's great. That was a great experience. So yeah,
I know it was cool. You got to be in Licorice Pizza.
Oh my god, yeah, that was so random because like it was a voice match for a very specific police dispatcher from the 1970s who was this is a really cool piece of history. I've got to pull up the name of the thing, only because I find this very interesting. Adam 12 was it was like a police, it was a cop series in Los Angeles, and I want to say the 1970s, no earlier than the 60s. And they actually hired a real life police dispatcher to do the dispatch on the television show. And that's what P.T. Anderson wanted for the police dispatcher in the film to actually sound like her. So I got this audition from Terry Douglas, who does a lot of like looping and voice matching and stuff, like those kinds of auditions, but she's also the casting director on Apex Legends. So she just reached out to me directly and was like, I think you can do this. Send it through your agent, but I also want you to be aware of this because I want you to read on this. And I did. Time passed. I want to say it was like a month and a half later. I get a phone call from her on a Friday night. Again, this is during the pandemic. So Friday night phone call, like 6 o'clock. And she's like, so the director wants you. And at first we were figuring out like, oh yeah, it'll probably be Monday. We'll do a session, like Source Connect, blah, blah, blah. We're figuring out all the details. And then like less than an hour later, she calls me back and is like, actually, can you self-direct yourself either tonight or tomorrow? And I was like, I will do it tonight. So I literally like did 5 takes of each of the lines, recorded it from my home studio at 7 o'clock at night on a Friday, and sent it in. And that's what you hear in the movie.
Wow.
I never did pickups or anything. It was like such a unique experience. And then what was really interesting was a lot of people knew that Ray was in the movie, for instance, but then they'd sit through to the end credits and they'd be like, wait, you're in this too? And I'm like, yeah, hi, what's up? It's me, the police dispatch. I haven't seen it myself yet. I haven't gotten to see the movie. But obviously it was my parents' favorite thing because my parents support my career, but they don't always understand like the intricacies of like, yes, this video game that I'm in or this show that I'm in, they don't necessarily connect to it because that's not media that they're used to consuming. So obviously they love when I'm in commercials because they understand commercials very well. And then when I was the voice in Licorice Pizza, they were like, oh, Allegra's in Licorice Pizza, the movie. And I'm like, it's 2 lines as a police dispatcher. And they're like, no, it's a big deal. I'm going to post about this on Facebook. And I'm like, have fun, guys. Like, but it comes from this place of like immense pride. And I'm really happy that my parents are like super gung-ho and super excited about my career, and they're really proud of me. And that makes me really happy because I'm an only child. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm doing good. My mommy and daddy think I'm doing a good job. But yeah, they were over the moon with it. Even though like for me, it was just I literally walked into my booth at 7:00 on a Friday night and was like, white SUV going down on this particular road. Like, it was like so like disconnected from everything from me. I was like, I don't know what these are used for. Apparently there's a police chase at some point. That's all I know. Like, that's all I knew about the movie until, obviously it came out. It's like, there's a police chase at some point. That's where I come in. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And it seemed, I know you've talked about it before, but it seems similarly that it's easy for you to slip into the Siri voice for the ranch.
Yes. It's I remember I was inspired by Portal, because I remember being very aware that they put a voice filter on Ellen McLean for GLaDOS, and GLaDOS is like a masterful performance, so I am not being critical at all of anything she did, but I remember wondering, can someone just make that sound with their voice? Can someone do that? And the answer is yes. You can. And that was a really fun thing for me to tap into and kind of train myself to do. There are a few of us who do Siri voices here in LA, but I very much enjoy whenever I get hired to do any kind of like voice assistant, any kind of things. And I've had a few of those, like in a few commercials and obviously in The Ranch, that was an amazing experience. I actually went on set for that. Oh. Actually, no, I should say, I went on set for one of the episodes because they'd already recorded one of the episodes. And I feel bad. I think they had another actress come in and record and do the whole thing. But then after they shot it, they sent auditions out again because they wanted to see what their options were. I read for it and I booked it. And so I went on set. They recorded my voice first and then played my voice for Ashton Kutcher to react to, which is kind of blows my mind. Yeah. And then the next week I came in and I did the ADR for the episode that I hadn't recorded in person, which was crazy. I was like, it was very weird. But my favorite part of being on set was that craft service for movies and television shows really is that good. I kind of gorged myself on scrambled eggs and maple bacon a lot. There was a lot of scrambled eggs and maple bacon in my life that day. I was just like, oh, I'm done. You don't need me right now? Cool. Because my call time was like 7:30, 8:00 in the morning. So that they got all of that audio before Ashton recorded the scenes. Mm-hmm. And my favorite part of that too is that they were just recording. I think they had the camera on me as I was reading it, and I was just standing in the set, with my papers, just kind of going through the script line by line. And they, because they weren't working with VO equipment, I literally would have to give like a good amount of space between the lines because the equipment they were working with was just set sound equipment, which isn't quite as fast as what we do in the booth. So they kept having to be like a little bit more time between the takes, Allegra. And I'm like, oh yeah, because that's a thing. Like, it's so much faster in VO. I felt so spoiled in that moment in what we do, not having to wait for sound equipment the way that we did, that I had to do it on set. Mm-hmm. So I would happily do it again, but I don't miss that aspect of working with sound equipment on set. Happily do it again though. It was great though. And like really, really weird. I actually watched him film the scene and just like literally like hearing everything that I had recorded prior, like coming out. It's just like, like would you like to record a message? Like, like all that stuff. Just and just seeing him react off of that and then beat, and they would play my next line and everything. It was very cool and weird at the same time. I enjoyed it. It was kind of a fun experience.
Are you the kind of person that do you not mind like listening to yourself?
I had to get over it. I had to get over it really quickly.
Yeah.
Because of Dragon Age, because I sort of booked a major role in the next game of a video game franchise that I was super obsessed with. And so if I wanted to play it, I was going to have to get used to listening to myself. And what I try to do when I listen to my own work is I try not to think too much like, oh, so that's the take they picked, or, oh God, I hate that read. I try to turn that part of my brain off so that I can just appreciate the final product and not think too hard about like the processes and everything that led to that point. I want to be able to enjoy the game or the show or the whatever and not worry too much about like, oh no, I could have done that line better. Like, because at the end of the day, they picked what they picked. It's not about my ego. It's about the final product. So, and I may disagree with what they picked, but it doesn't matter. It's not my call.
Yeah, just for me, like when I went back and watched some of your performances as Kakyuu before this, I just thought it was really well done.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I love my job. I have a lot of fun with it. And, I definitely hope that comes across in the work that I do. So
outside of what you've mentioned already, is there anything else that's upcoming that you can safely talk about? Or
so I'll say this, Apex Season 12 is coming up. There's a big anniversary event coming up too. I think it's an anniversary collection event celebrating 3 years of Apex Legends, which is crazy to me. Can't believe this game has been live for 3 years. It's insane. So definitely if you're an Apex player, please enjoy it and have fun. Maggie is a cool character, and I'm super excited for you all to see the interactions between Fuse and Maggie and Bloodhound and how all of that turns out and how their journey continues. Also, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is a game we didn't talk about, but I absolutely adore, is coming out on Switch in March, I want to say. Is it March something? It's either March or April. And so when it comes out on Switch, please play it. That game is a narrative masterpiece, and it was so good to work on, and I highly recommend it. The Nirvana Initiative comes out in June. I can talk about that now, and that's pretty exciting because I love that game and I love that franchise so much. So super excited for you all to see Mizuki's story and everything, and also obviously what Boss has been up to because she's the best. I think that's mostly it. I hope you're all enjoying Lantern Right, obviously. I think that's everything I could. Oh, finally, of course. What am I saying? Jujutsu Kaisen movie.
Yeah. Coming
out in March. It's getting a theatrical release, I believe, which is like, I think they confirmed it's going into theaters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, which is just like, so please watch it dubbed. I don't think they've announced who the new cast members are, but some pretty good casting. So y'all are going to like it. And I loved working on it. The movie is beautiful and really interesting, and y'all are going to love it. It was so good. I think that's everything right now. Someone's going to get so mad at me for leaving something off, but I think that's everything I can talk about right now. Literally, look at my calendar really quickly because I don't know. Can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. I talked about Apex. I talked about that. Yeah, that's everything that comes to mind right now. I do have a few more things that I'm working on or have finished working on that should be discussable soon. So keep an eye on my Twitter. I'm always very excited to talk about all the really cool stuff I work on. So yeah, I'll share things as I can.
My final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Making people happy with the stuff that I make, I'd say. Growing up, I was very much a bullied kid, and I found a lot of solace in the media that I consumed. And, back in the early days when you know, being online was a little bit dodgier. You know, you couldn't necessarily make friends the way that you can, for instance, on Twitter now. But one of my best friends is actually someone I met on a Teen Titans forum when I was 15 years old. And she lives in Los Angeles, and we are still friends to this day. Like, she's seriously one of my closest friends, like one of my best friends. And I want the art that I make to bring people joy, even if the content of the art itself can be sad. Like, for instance, some of Dorothea's moments and everything. Even if I make you cry, I want the overall experience to be that a positive one, that I made you smile, that, you know, you made friends, that you found joy in these things, in the escapism of watching a show or playing a video game or whatever. And I want to be able to reach out and pay forward. I'm going to say kind of give back, but it's really paying forward for a lot of the experiences that I had growing up, and the ways in which I was able to explore and see who I was and find myself through the media that I consumed, whether it was me realizing that I'm a bisexual woman, or just making friends with people I'm still friends with to this day. I want to be able to continue doing that. And I want to be remembered as an advocating voice that made people smile, you know? I think that's the best way to put it.
And is there something that you want people to take away from your performances so far?
Representation is important. And that specifically in terms of the LGBTQ plus characters that I voice, that your stories matter too. Mm-hmm. Like, these stories matter. I'm helping to tell the stories because that is who I am as well. And I'm very grateful to be at this part of I'm very grateful to exist in this moment in history where queer narratives are more normalized. And I'm very happy to be someone who's helping to tell them. So I hope that people can find a lot of comfort in that.
Well, thanks for letting me do this.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And again, thank you for the slightly late start. Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, I'll be sure to send it to you if you want to see it once I have it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love that. To the Beidou main server, as you are all focused on loving and appreciating Beidou, and also sharing your best builds and strategies. If you ever want to trade tactics, you guys are always ready. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, you as well.
Bye.
Bye.